you. Today we are here to pay honor and respect to victims of gun violence whose lives were taken senselessly way too soon. But we are also here to honor and to share love with our fellow survivors of gun violence whose lives were impacted in some way, shape, or form by a gun. So now we would like to take a moment of silence for those victims and survivors. If you are a survivor and you feel comfortable, you can raise your hand and you can also say aloud the name of the person who you lost. Scott Smith.
Lois Ogle. Kyle North.
Michelle Tucker. Marcus Buckley. Freddie Harper. Janice Roberts.
Dennis Manning.
Trenton Motley. Eric Bird.
Thank you. Now I want you all to please take a look at these wristbands that are on my arm. Almost every single one of these wristbands represents a life that was snuffed out too soon with a gun. And if I had a wristband for every person who I know, all my friends I've made over the years, my fellow survivors of gun violence, if I had a wristband for all of their loved ones, both of my arms would be entirely covered. While the media tends to focus on mass shootings, we must understand that the majority of Americans who die from gun violence do not make the national news. Just as important are the survivors of gun violence in our country, such as myself, a survivor of gun suicide, which represents 2/3 of gun deaths in this country. My father, Scott Smith, took his life with a gun when he was 57 years old, just 5 years ago, the day after my birthday. Just as important are Black Americans, who are 13 times more likely to be shot